One-on-one with Priscilla, Gagné, and Coach Andrzej Sadej. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, thanks.
We are on our last 2 days in Alberta, in Calgary today and tomorrow. After a very good 11 days in Lethbridge, very good training camp organized by Mr. Ewan Beaton, the regional training center coach in Lethbridge, with fantastic group of young people willing and happy to actually host us there. So that was very refreshing.
That's great. We're actually going to get into that. I'd like to hear more about that. But first, I just want to, it's funny because the first time I interviewed you both was back in May 2015. That's 6 years ago, along with Tony Walby, of course, and Sensei Jun Takahashi at the Takahashi Dojo in Ottawa, Ontario. It was an early Sunday morning just prior to the 2015 IBSA World Games in Seoul, South Korea. Do you guys remember that?
I do. I actually saw that clip not too long ago. I want to say within the last year.
I guess what I want to say is there's so much has happened in the last 6 years, I should say, for both of you. And I want you to take us back actually in Rio, the Paralympic Games. You made your debut there. If you can just put in context what's happened in the last 6 years, what did it mean for you to compete there? What do you recall the most from that experience? Frame the journey, and then after I'll ask Andrzej about that experience.
Sure. So back in 2016, I was fortunate enough to participate in the Paralympic Games, and it was really exciting for me on many different levels. My friends from high school were also competing. So we were able to realize our dreams together and being in the Paralympics together, not in the same sport, but it was really, really neat nonetheless. And, but more than that, being in the venue, in what they call the chute, I guess, or the hall, the long corridor that you walk down to get to the mats, and when you're waiting in line for your turn to fight. And just being surprised, I guess, by the nerves, because I really didn't think I was going to get nervous. And then the way that the nerves hit was really unusual for me as well. It just made me really heavy and my limbs kind of slow. So that was surprising to learn. And then just the entire crowd cheering and screaming. You couldn't make out anything. It was really special. And of course, having Andrzej there by my side, I would never have traded that for anything. And he calmed my nerves down and got me back to focusing. And my parents were there as well, so that was really neat. My mom hates traveling, and she did it. So that was really, really cool. My mom and dad both came, and friends from Brazil that we knew came out and supported us. And it was just a beautiful experience. Obviously, I was completely, I don't want to say devastated, but devastated when the Sore Mate was spoken, and I had lost the fight by Yuko. And it's a really terrible feeling when it's like the world just stops spinning in slow motion, because there's nothing you can do to change it. It's over, it's done, and that's what it is. So that was hard. But then to get the hug from Andrzej after was really, I apologized to him, and he didn't even acknowledge the apology. He thanked me, and that says the kind of coach that he is and the kind of person that he is.
Well, that's incredible. And I think that match was for the bronze medal match against an Uzbek athlete, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Now, Coach, can you take us back to that particular match, if you don't mind, and describe the match from what you recall?
We didn't know much about the Uzbek, other than she was a Paralympic debut also as Priscilla, and that she was a Paralympic Asian champion, which meant a lot because she had to defeat some very strong people. We didn't see her before the Paralympic Games in Rio, and so I thought that the match is quite open and potential for Priscilla's medal was there. At the same time, I knew that Priscilla was practically a new person in the sport, and considering the fact that she started judo very late with significant visual impairment, her repertoire in judo was very limited. And what she accomplished getting there first of all, and then finally getting the opportunity to fight for a bronze medal was already, for me, it was a great accomplishment. But as the fight started and progressed, it's a very short fight, few minutes, but it seems very long when you retrospectively look at that. Priscilla could have won that match, and it was a very, very close call at the very end. And I felt heartbroken for a second that she didn't realize that her dreams didn't materialize. But then again, what she already accomplished in such a very short athletic career, dealing with what she has to deal with on a daily basis, it was for me a remarkable achievement, and I was proud of what she did, sad and proud at the same time. So it was a difficult, somewhat difficult challenge to deal with that emotionally at that moment of time. But all I knew was that this athlete needs all the support she can get at this point of time, and that's my job. That's how I've seen it and how I see it today also.
Right on. So I think Uzbeki's, her name was Sevinç Salieva. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing her name.
You pronounce it better than me.
Oh, really? Is she still competing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I've fought her probably 3 or 4 times since then. And I've beat her the last 2, maybe 3, but I think twice. And the last one was really quite rewarding because it was in Tashkent, her home city, and it was by submission. So it felt very validating.
For
redeeming.
Sure.
There's the word, redeeming.
No doubt. Now, Priscilla, what, in terms of that amazing experience overall that you had, you competed and you made it all the way to the bronze medal, as your coach just mentioned. What was the main takeaway for you when you look back at that experience, and how did it frame where you are here today?
I had a couple of takeaways from that experience, and I've always said it that you got to bring meaning to suffering or it's in vain. Not that I suffered, but just the principle is there. So how can I make that a win for me? How can I grow from it? What can I do to make this an incredible life lesson? And so for me, for judo wise, it was to not be surprised by the nerves, to be aware that that's a possibility. It could happen to me and it could still happen again, and to be prepared for it. And so to mentally prepare for it, to visualize. And I've gotten to the point where I can visualize it so realistically that I actually get the butterflies and everything. So I think that was a big takeaway, is to never underestimate yourself or like the power of the nerves, and determination, because up until that moment, I didn't know if I was going to continue for another quadrant or not. And the fact that I didn't get the medal, but I was so close, solidified that I would continue for Tokyo to try to get that medal. So I guess the determination solidified.
Interesting. When you speak of visualization, what else do you do to kind of, I guess, calm the nerves and bring yourself to the space you need to be in? What other techniques?
One of my biggest things is pacing. So between my fights, I like to walk back and forth, not necessarily talking. And sometimes I have to have a guide with me if there's a lot of people running around. But I don't want to be talking. I just want to visualize what I'm going to do in the next fight, knowing what they're probably going to attack with, what I'm going to defend with, and what I'm going to attack with, how they're probably going to defend. And then I'm picturing myself, my physical body. I picture like a light that represents strength, and it starts in the top of my head, and then it spreads all through my body, kind of like some of the meditation stuff you hear. But for me, it's not peace. It's not peace or love. It's strength, and it goes to all my muscles and all my body, all the way down to my toes. So that's one of the big things I do.
Very cool. Now, Coach, how would you describe Priscilla as a judo competitor? If you were to characterize her, what does she bring to a judo match?
Ferocity and determination. She is known among coaches in the visually impaired world, in the Paralympic world. That is relatively small, much smaller than the able-bodied judoka, judo world, and with 45, 50 countries competing, and all the coaches know Priscilla quite well, and they admire her. They know that this is exceptional blind competitor, because majority of the people who are actually competitive at the world stage are visually impaired but not blind. She is the exception there. So they characterize her, or some of them call her a lion's heart in a small body. For me, from the very beginning, when I started to work with Priscilla, even before I was nominated as a coach of the program, when we met at the Takahashi Dojo, I've seen this potential in this girl who was just never working at less than 100%. Whomever she had to face, small girl or big man, because of the limited number of potential participants, sparring partners in Takahashi Dojo, she was always there 100%. You could see her trying to do her best. For me, I always repeat that, and always will repeat that. This is one of the most humbling and enriching experiences of my coaching life and life in judo in general. Being able to work with the Paralympic program. Priscilla, of course, is the most important part of that journey right now. She is the only Canadian Paralympic athlete who qualified for Rio. We had Tony Walby from Ottawa with us in Rio. We had Justin Karn, who tried for the Olympic Games in Tokyo, didn't make it. We had few other athletes on the pathway, over the past 6 years, who went through this program, and each of them brings something new and a new perspective, and for me, new window of opportunity to see the world through the eyes of the people who have to deal with our reality on daily basis. Each of them is different. Each of them brings different dimension to this new picture for me. And again, this experience is very enriching. Priscilla, it's particularly difficult because she loves to learn, and she wants to learn all the new things all the time. And for me, knowing what she can do and what successfully works in a competition against able-bodied, visually impaired, or slightly visually impaired individuals, I always try to limit her desire to experiment with new things and focus on what works, because that's what, in my opinion, is going to bring her closer to a potential success. And as you know, she is very successful. She is right now number 2 ranked in the world. And actually at the games in Tokyo, she will be ranked number 1, which brings the level of expectations much higher than what we had in Rio, because for us it was a great success that she made it within 2 years to the games. Now, 5 years later, not 4, 5 years later, she is practically number 1 in the world, which is a phenomenal success from my perspective.
If for sure, I just want to follow up on what you just mentioned, that she has a desire to continuously learn. When you say that, what aspect, is there a particular aspect of judo that she's zoning in on for that sort of development? Is it, a particular throw? Is it the niwaza? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I can elaborate it, but you are a judoka, Garman. You know how we always say judo is for life. It's a never-ending lesson, and you do it for your life, and that is true. It's unlimited number of options that we can learn in judo, and always new combinations, always new options, always new opportunities. It's the chess that we play with our opponents. Depending on their reaction, we are reacting, and that's what Priscilla does all the time. There is a new reaction, and she learns that she could move somewhat differently, and she wants to do that. And again, for me, experiments with new things bring new challenges to the picture, because every new thing you learn, you also are making mistakes in the process of application of this new thing. So the better you are at what you're already doing, the better chances you have to execute it perfectly against somebody who knows you and who will defend. And this is what I'm saying. You know, we have 20 technical skills kansetsuwaza, which are the arm locks, and shimewaza, total 20 techniques, but you have hundreds of different options of how to apply it, how to open up, how to close it down, etc. And I want Priscilla to know one of those options perfectly and execute it perfectly. And she wants to do 100 of them. And it's not enough in a lifetime to learn all of this to do perfectly. So this is, and the same applies to the tachiwaza, to the standing techniques, to the throwing techniques. So limiting her in her desire to learn new things is one of the challenges I'm facing. I did not have to face it all the time, because for the past 4 years, when she was training at the National Training Center, I've seen her only occasionally, mostly once a week, twice a week. But once we start to prepare and we are spending more time together, on daily basis, twice a day, then it becomes a challenge, because she gets bored. She wants to do something new. She wants to learn new things. She loves to do that. And I repeat, let's focus on what we have to focus on now. We have to be faster, stronger, decisive, precise. When you execute something, that's what you have to repeat thousands of times. And sometimes we don't like each other for that reason.
Very interesting. Now, Priscilla, as your coach just mentioned, you've made podiums all over the world. You've won medals internationally and so on. What fuels what motivates you to compete?
Before COVID, it was, I didn't even need motivation. I just had it. It was there. It was hunger. It was exciting. It was exhilarating, thrilling, getting stronger, getting better. And then progress. That's and probably why I like to learn so much. I love seeing progress. And I think when you go to the Paralympics and lose to a certain person, and then you go to another competition and lose to them again, but then the next one you win, and then you win again, and it's just that thrill is it's hard to let go of. And just aside from that, even throughout COVID, something that continuously, because motivation changes, right? It's never always one thing for me. And I think a big part of it is the next generation. If I'm going to go speak in public schools, if I quit when it gets hard, or if I walk away when it's tough, or I want to throw the towel in, then what message do I have to give to the next generation who face struggles in life? And so sometimes they are my motivation, and I don't even know them yet. Sometimes it's my family, sometimes it's friends. It's always my coach. I never want to let him down. I never want to disappoint him. And he's invested so much in this that it encourages me to do the same, to continually invest. And so, yeah, motivation definitely changes. Music is another big one that I use to encourage myself or pump myself up to get through the rough patches. But ultimately, it's other people, the next generation, and just the thrill and the hunger and the adrenaline of competing.
What were some of the challenges as far as training goes during this lockdown due to COVID, the series of lockdowns? What were, you just mentioned motivation, which is obviously the elephant in the room. It's the big one for any athlete, I would imagine. But beyond that, what were some of the personal and professional challenges for you as an international competitor during this very challenging series of lockdowns?
Well, to be completely honest, it's probably two-ish things. But one, I don't have a problem adapting. I can adapt to change. I love change, actually. And anything that's got a season or a deadline or a finish line on it, I can endure until then. So I was adapting pretty well to being, in a segregated area of the mat, just as everybody else was. But what really got difficult for me personally was when difficult decisions had to be made for the Olympic and Paralympic team. And the Olympic team was given a privilege, or was given some kind of provision, where they were able to train together in a giant bubble and train properly without masks, without a limited area on the mat, and with 20 plus other athletes and coaches, 2 coaches. And for me, it really hurt me because we weren't allowed, we didn't have that same provision. So we still had to train in pods of 4 with a mask in a tiny section of the mat. And again, it would have been okay with me if everybody had the same treatment, but because one group was given that privilege and one wasn't, that's what I really, really struggled with. And I understand there's different budgets for Olympic and Paralympic, and people get put in difficult positions and have to make decisions they may not like having to make. But that was an honest, really difficult time for me. And poor Andrzej has probably heard more earfuls, but he's a fantastic stand-up coach who takes it and takes it and takes it. And he's really, as he mentioned before, he's very empathetic. You can tell in the way he speaks, and he has tried everything for us and really put a huge effort forth to accommodate us as best as he can, and with the limits he's been given. And he's done a phenomenal job, and he's sacrificed a lot as well to be able to give me a proper training here in Alberta, which the training camp that we did, that's 2 weeks long, but even prior to that, going to Texas for a couple of weeks to get proper training before a competition. So he's put a lot in and really jumped in head first to help us out as a Paralympic team.
You mentioned your coach consistently, and in a lot of your interviews, you have a lot of respect for him, for his guidance and his input and so on. Tell us a bit more about your relationship with your coach.
Well, when you're, to give you some context, so growing up as a vision impaired kid, I was never allowed to do anything. The coaches never stepped in and said, hey, yeah, we can make this work. Let's think about it and see how, nobody ever brainstormed or anything. And the times I was allowed to join, I was never on the field or on, I was always on the bench. But then, when I met Andrzej, he fully supported the movement, the Paralympic movement. He saw me as a person, not just as a person with a disability. He saw me as a judoka, not necessarily, as a para judoka. He saw the hard work was there. He saw the capability was there. The potential was there. And he brainstorms. He tried to make it different things. We ran across different scenarios and tried to make different things work and see how we can make this work. He even became the coach after about a year when we were needing a coach. He jumped in and became the coach, and just really is a person of integrity, of empathy, and yet no nonsense, and very patient and compassionate, and yet at the same time, this is what we need to do, and we're going to do this. And I think I think that works for me. I can respect that, and I love that, and I wouldn't trade my coach for anyone in the world.
Wow, that's really incredible. Hearing that when you hear an athlete speak about their coach in terms of their leadership ability and their genuine belief in their athletes, I think that's really remarkable. Andrzej, when you hear Priscilla speak about you as a coach, when you hear that, what do you think?
I'm glad that we have a black and gray colors here only, because definitely she makes me feel. It's I think it's a mutual person, and it is not it's not an effort for me to work with her. As I said earlier, I consider this a privilege, an honor, and she I've been in judo for such a long time, over 50 years, and I've been involved with the Paralympic program prior to getting to know Tony. I obviously knew Tony Wolby when he was an able-bodied athlete, and when I learned that he is a visually impaired individual, it was quite a shock to me first. And then I started to work with Tony and Priscilla and the rest of the team, and it, as I mentioned, it opened a completely different window for me, different dimension on how I looked at life and I looked at judo. It's as simple, I think that until we have been given opportunity to see something through a different perspective, it's very difficult to do it. Once you have to step in and start, it's up to us to decide whether we are ready for it and take that challenge on or not. I'm glad I had that opportunity. I'm grateful for that opportunity. So it's a journey that I'm theoretically close to my retirement age. I may decide to continue for a while longer if I am given that opportunity. And there are some Paralympic athletes who will try to go for the next Paralympic Games, which are only 3 years away now. One thing that I want to mention and add to what Priscilla said about the situation that we were faced with, the challenge of the COVID and the unprecedented situation that we are all going through and will go through for a while yet, and we have to get ready for it. Is that I think the overall picture is that we handled it quite well, considering the fact that we are living in a country that actually respects the rule of law, respects authority, respects science and the knowledge that is being presented to us, and we trust in that knowledge and we behave accordingly. The rest of the world, we've experienced that. There are many parts of the world that theoretically on paper, they respect the same kind of restrictions and regulations, but in reality, they did not stop training for a day. And when we eventually got to see those athletes after over a year of hiatus from competition, you could clearly see that there are countries that never stop training. So in addition to the fact that we had been restricted from training, we are facing a situation that many of our competitors that we are going to face in Rio did not have to go through the same kind of challenges that we did. And that makes it even more desirable to prove that what we are doing and what we did is the right thing to do and be successful. The last thing I would say, again, the last 2 weeks, we've experienced a really good training in Alberta and Lethbridge. Our regional training center coach, Mr. Beaton, and the coaches of the club and a number of coaches from different parts of Canada came here. And that's obvious that coaches are going to support Priscilla as the lonely Canadian Paralympian, the first female Paralympic judoka in Canada, the first female who is a world medalist in the Paralympic judo in Canada. And everybody is proud, but everybody was happy. Everybody was happy and joyful to have Priscilla there on the mat and helpful, extremely helpful. That was, this is a next generation young people who experience the same what I experienced as a very mature individual, which I believe made me a better human being. And I hope that all of those young people are going to have the same kind of experience.
Now, you mentioned obviously the impact of the whole, lockdowns, a series of lockdowns, really changing sport to a certain degree as far as competition. Because some countries, as you mentioned, we're still training, carrying on with business as usual, right? Like it was all good. Is this impact a temporary impact, or will it have long-term impacts as far as competitors and competition in judo, in your opinion? Is this just, when we look back, will this just be a temporary shift, or will it have long-term repercussions as far as how competitors make the podium?
Question to Priscilla or to me?
Well, to both of you.
It all depends, I must say, because we are not over yet with this crisis, and we know that now that combat sport may be affected to the extent that until fully vaccinated, we may not be allowed to be on the mats. That is okay with the adult population, but majority of judoka in Canada and the countries of similar social cultural structures, so the entire Western European world and United States, etc., majority of judoka are children, and children are not allowed to be vaccinated yet. So we will see whether long-term impact is going to be very significant. We hope, obviously, that it's not going to be the case, but it's too early to say at this stage, I would say.
And now, Priscilla, your
I'd
thoughts on
say
that?
from the athlete's point of view, I would say, and from the Paralympic point of view only, I would say, sorry, right now we have a new person, a new athlete that's joined us, and she's on the pathway. She's competed a couple of times with us now. So long term, what I experienced and what we as a Paralympic judo team experienced, will it affect? There's a strong possibility that short term, yes. But long term, I think the program's going to continue on. It's going to definitely look differently than it does or did in the past. I think this is, again, just my non-professional opinion. But I think that, yes, it will continue, and we'll just get smarter with how we approach it. And, we learn from experience. So what works, what doesn't work, both from a performance standpoint and a keeping them in the sport standpoint. So we'll get wise with time and with experience. So there's no doubt in my mind it will continue.
Right on. And now, in terms of preparation for the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games, what's your overall approach to training and preparing for these games? What have you been focusing on? First, we'll go with Priscilla, and then Coach will chime in on that.
So Andrzej can correct me at any point. He holds the plan. I do what I'm told, kind of a thing, and I like that. I very much like having a plan of like every competition, and Tokyo will be no different. So I like having an agenda when I go into the competition, because it does help with visualization and strategy. And so we're working on different strategies, working on different techniques, adapting different things for my physical health purposes. It's no secret I got a little bit injured in Great Britain, so learning how to navigate that and still compete and still be at competitive shape, and so focusing on how to make that happen. And so again, Andrzej has the plan, the game plan, and he tells me, and I just plug it in, and I trust him fully with that. So I always ask, because when they're teaching technical, of course, I'm, oh, this looks like fun. And because like you said, I have a bit of ADD, probably undiagnosed ADD, but it's definitely there. So for me, I'm like a squirrel sometimes. And Andrzej's the anchor, like, no, okay, come back to the center. Let's focus, rezone. This is why there's a reason we're here, and there's a reason we're working towards something specific, not general. So he's great for that as well.
And Coach, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's she covered it quite well. The Paralympic field is much smaller, obviously, than the Olympic field. So you have a comparison. In Priscilla's weight division, there were 40 athletes who were world ranked. Only 12 athletes are qualified for the Paralympic Games per weight division. So it's much smaller field, and for that reason, we know each of the competitors quite well. Out of the 12 people who are going to be in Priscilla's division in Tokyo, Priscilla fought 6 of them, and she knows them quite well. out of experience, and she did not compete against another 6. So it's my job to make sure that I understand what they do, how they behave during the match, and to design a strategy. So as Priscilla said, she likes to have a plan, and always when she goes into competition against a very specific person, she has plan A and plan B, and sometimes plan C, with very specific tasks to perform. So the strategy for the match is set, and she executes it very well. And the fact, again, I repeat that I always try to repeat that because for the uninitiated population, Paralympic judo sometimes it's very unfair, and it is. I just give you a little bit of statistical information. When Paralympic judo was introduced in 1988, it was males only. 60% of participants in judo were blind, and 40% were visually impaired. In the last World Championships, where Priscilla took a bronze medal, the percentage of blind people was 4. 96% are visually impaired athletes. That shows how that movement shifted from being initially created for blind people, and some visually impaired people joined in. Now the power is in the hands of visually impaired, slightly visually impaired, or presumably visually impaired. And those people dominate the sport. So having somebody like Priscilla with blindness competing against visually impaired athletes, I always say she is always fighting the uphill battle, because those athletes who can see have huge number of different advantages in judo match. So that is one thing. The second part, I would like to mention that after the Tokyo Paralympic Games, the game changes. The International Paralympic Committee recognized the fact that there is unfairness in the judo community, and the classification for next Paralympic cycle is going to change. Athletes who are blind are no longer going to compete against athletes who are visually impaired. There will be 2 different separate categories for Paralympic Games in Paris. So that brings me back to Priscilla's future, because if she decides to stay for the next 3 years in the system, then she would automatically become one of the favorites for a gold medal in Paris, and it will be a challenge. Priscilla is not a young chick, she is the oldest judoka on the mat most of the time in our national training center. She could be a mother of some of those children that she competed against the last 2 weeks, if she decided very early in her life to go that role. Despite of that, again, she is working extremely hard, and again, my job, or the job of any coach who is going to be involved in that program in the future, is to recognize that Paralympic program is, as much as it is judo still, it's still Paralympic program. It's different. It has to be adapted. It has to consider the special needs of the individuals involved. And if we forget about that, then we are walking the pathway of Uzbekistan, that has full team of able-bodied athletes who pretend that they don't see that well.
Wow. Now, Priscilla, Paris 2024. I don't mean to put you on the spot now, but I will. What do you think about that? You're competing from Japan, and then competing at the next one in Paris, to France, Japan and France, 2 major judo countries, of course. What are your thoughts? Are you visualizing 2024?
I am if they change the vision classification, I probably wouldn't be considering it very heavily, to be frank. But since they have changed the vision classification, I guess, divisions, then I'm not opposed to it. So I do want to take my decision after Tokyo. I know that my training will definitely look different than what it is right now, or pre to COVID, before COVID, pre-pandemic. So, but we'll see how that looks. Like Andrzej said, I'm 35 years old. going into this, and I'd be 38 in Paris. So that's a lot of break falls that on bones that started late in life. So we'll see, but I'm definitely not opposed to it. But training, like I said, training will definitely look different than it did before. If I continue.
Who's your biggest rival, Priscilla? Who's your number one nemesis that you want to be in the finals with and beat for the gold?
I would have said the Ukrainian because I've never beat her before, but she's not going to be there. So I was excited and sad. Excited because I've never beat her, so that would be a hard win. But sad because I've never beat her and it'd be an amazing win. So I don't know, Andrzej, who do you think would be my, I guess, considered rival in the definition? Like Uzbek, we've gone back, she's beat me twice. I beat her twice. So I guess that's in the technical sense a rival. Probably one I'd love to fight that I have a really good friendship or rapport, I should say, with is Germany. Ramona. She's older than me, and she's been in this forever since they started letting women in judo for Paralympic judo in 2004. She's a Paralympic champion a couple times over. Her and her twin sister won it together one year. And I think she's a B2, so she's ranked just a little bit more cited than me. And but she works really hard, and I haven't been able to fight her in a few years. But the last time I fought her, I felt stronger than before. I still lost, but I felt stronger than I had previous. So I think I'd like to see her in the final I think I would say Ramona. What do you think, Andrzej?
Well, it would be nice. I would just refer to the world ranking right now.
Yeah.
The number 1, number 2, 3, and 4 are 3 athletes who are borderline cited. That is Uzbeki number 2, number 3 is Algerian, and number 3 is a new Azerbaijani athlete. Priscilla beats Salayeva. Salayeva, the Uzbeki, is number 2 world ranked. Priscilla beat her twice, but she did not beat the Algerian yet, and she never faced the Azeri. As I said, those athletes, those will be the 4-seeded athletes. So the earliest Priscilla can meet one of those is either semi-final or the final. The rest of the athletes are going to be drawn randomly. You never know whom you're gonna get. Priscilla, because she is number 1 and it's 12 competitors, we know that she is not going to have the round number 1. She will go directly to round number 2 and fight the winner of the first round, whoever it is going to be. I think Priscilla can beat anyone of that field, pending a little bit of luck and pending a little bit of better preparation that we are still going to do in the next 3 weeks in Montreal. This is what we are going there for. I hope we are not going to have to go through the same kind of experience and end up with the 5th place outside of the podium, because this is not what Priscilla worked for the past 5 years. I want to add one more thing. When the COVID started, we were both confident that we are going there to be in the final competing against Ukrainian. The reason the Ukrainian is not coming is she had a baby. So COVID took away her opportunity to become a Paralympic champion. The Ukrainian was a Paralympic champion in Rio in a higher weight division, 57 kilograms. She didn't lose a match in Paralympic judo in the past 7 years. She is a remarkable athlete who was successful on the able-bodied circuit prior to joining the Paralympic circuit. Her twin sister is also a very successful Ukrainian athlete fighting on the able-bodied side. So the Ukrainian disappeared. Another Ukrainian is in. Ukrainian who did not compete in Rio in Priscilla's weight division, because at that time that Ukrainian had a baby. It's an irony, kind of irony. The challenge we are facing with this new Ukrainian is when we've seen her last time 6 years ago, she was B3 athlete, and she was one of the top ranked in Priscilla's division. And then we didn't see her for 5 years. And this year she comes back as B1. so fully blind. She had very good judo, and she maintained her judo. So this is a wild card that we are not very much aware of what she is capable of doing right now. But I assume that all athletes who lost vision, who were prominent judoka as able-bodied athletes and then lost vision and became Paralympians, they still have a significant advantage over people who never had a vision, because they have their muscle memory, they learn judo as able-bodied athletes, and they probably have very good capacity to rehearse the real judo in their minds, which definitely helps them in competition against athletes who never had the chance to see themselves in the reality of able-bodied sport. So that's there are a few wrenches thrown into the picture with the COVID challenge. Priscilla also had a surgery last year, which eliminated 3 months of training pretty much from her preparation, which is not a bad thing, to be quite honest, because considering that she is again not a very young athlete, she needs more time to recover. She had enough time to get her body back into shape, and so we are getting ready. All summarizing it,
Right on. Priscilla, what's your favorite throw? What's your go-to throw?
Probably Sadej. I think Sadej is my go-to. And my favorite is not necessarily my go-to, and this is where Andrzej probably wants to like throw me, is I really like Uchimata, and I always had this fascination with Uchimata since I was a yellow belt and learned about it, but I could never execute it until after my surgery. In practice, I started being able to do it, and not necessarily in randori so much, maybe once or twice, but not beautifully. So that's my favorite, but my go-to is Sadej.
I was looking at some old clips from 6 years ago at the Takashi Dojo, and I remember seeing you do a lot of uranagis. Do you still do uranagis?
In counter, yep. When people come in for koshiguruma or anywhere where I'm able to hug their torso, essentially, that's still something I like. I think I had shied away from it a little bit because of my hip, and that requires very powerful hips.
Because of the hip surgery, yeah? No,
pre-hip surgery.
Oh,
the tear, yeah, the tear was preventing, because it was painful to do and it was weakened. And now I don't have any pain anymore, and I've done a lot of rehab, and I believe it's strong. So now I just got to work the core to be able to get that strength back to where it was, say, in Rio, to be able to do uranagi like I used to. But I still do it. Like I did it here at the camp quite a few times, and it's still a go-to for sure for a counter.
How about your Newaza game? Speak to us about your approach to the ground fighting.
So for Newaza, I'm more comfortable on the ground, I guess, because of my wrestling background, and also where your opponent is at all times. You feel them a lot better, and I'm just stronger, I think, on the ground. So I had a bit of a bad experience in Lima, where one of my escapes from Koshinjume, one of the chokes, the referee misinterpreted as I was submitting.
Oh.
Yeah. So ever since then, I'm a little less, quick to do that particular escape. But I very strong defensively. Like I don't, instead of trying to escape, I'll defend it, if that makes sense. And I can usually do it pretty easily, at least in training. In competition, they tend to not engage with me so much in Newaza in competition. They do the same as me. They'll defend or stand up, or just hold in place to burn time to get stood back up. Unless I'm misunderstanding that, Andrzej, but I think they don't engage with me as probably they used to, or they did at one point in time.
Andrzej, your thoughts on that as far as her Newaza?
Priscilla is very strong. Defense, practically nobody can catch her. And in the past 4 years, everybody learned that you don't go with Priscilla into Newaza. So they ran away. They try to keep her away as much as possible. And if they have opportunity to stand up, they stand up. It's true what Priscilla says. It's true also in the Paralympic sport that judoka who are blind and they face judoka who are visually impaired, they prefer to go on the ground because they have advantage over the. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is, really. You know, the few blind judoka who are successful, they are usually successful because they are able to execute very good newaza techniques and finish the matches on the ground. So with Priscilla, that's what she said is true. If she is on the top of the opponent, her technique to go, in my opinion, is sankaku. She has a very well developed sankaku, and she can practically catch everyone with that if given the opportunity. But she also has two other good techniques I'm not going to mention by name that she can execute from different positions. And again, if she is on top, she can finish almost everyone in the Paralympic movement. And when she is on the bottom, most of the people are just running away from her. So that's how it is right now.
In general, Andrzej, how important is Newaza for any judo competitor? And I ask that because it seems like there's more throwing technique than in terms of the training. We don't see a lot. I mean, we do see a lot of Newaza. I shouldn't say that, but your opinion on Newaza training as part of being a fully developed judo player?
You know, I don't really want to.
We don't have to go there if you don't want to go there.
This one because judo starts in tachiwaza.
Right.
Those are the sport rules. Judo starts in tachiwaza, and there are nations that are extremely good at judo that hate the fact that judo has an newaza. They say, just get rid of that. Come on, we don't want that.
Right.
We want to have only stand-up judo. Obviously, the full picture of judo is to have both tachiwaza and newaza at least acceptable level of development. But because we start with tachiwaza, if somebody has perfect tachiwaza and finishes the matches with beautiful throws, they really don't need newaza. So what is required from high level competitive judoka is if they are very good in tachiwaza, they have to be very good in defense of newaza. Make sure that they are not getting caught when they find themselves in a difficult situation. And that's a double-edged sword, of course, because there are athletes who are not that good in nagewaza throwing techniques, but they're extremely good on the ground. And there are a few ground specialists who, if they get you on the ground, in whatever situation, you are not going to get up. From this perspective, I say the well-developed all-around judo is absolutely necessary. But the level of what it means well-developed is a very, very open subject.
Right.
Because again, some of the countries have athletes who are going to have only one technique on the ground that is developed to perfection. And if you do training with them and you go into newaza randori, you discover that they really don't have a clue what they are doing on the ground. But in competition, when they get you, you have 10 to 15 seconds to survive because they are going to apply that one technique that they have so perfectly and with such power that it is very difficult to escape from them. So it's a very different picture from the perspective of great developed judoka, overall picture of judoka, from overall picture of a great champion. Because you can be a great champion without any newaza. You can be a very good champion in judo with limited skills in tachiwaza. But again, after 50 plus years in judo, I always prefer well-developed both qualities.
Man, that's an excellent answer, and I could ask you a series of more series of questions in in regards to that topic for like another 2 hours because it's anyways. For me, I find that topic really fascinating. Maybe we'll do that again sometime down the road. I have a few more questions for you both. Priscilla, what are you aiming for at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games? What are you aiming for? What's your intention there?
Oh, my intention is to get on the podium for sure. One of the coaches at the INS, Janusz, actually a friend of Andrzej, he said something before Rio, and it kind of stuck with me. And he said, it's your goal is to get on the podium to get a medal. Your dream is the gold. So, oh my gosh, the dream of a gold medal, and the work we went through this last year and a half alone, let alone the 3 years prior, it would be just so amazing. But I'm definitely, my goal is to medal. That's, we always say, every competitor will say, we don't go there a participant. Nobody wants a ribbon, we want a medal, and that's my intention.
Coach, well, when you hear that, well, what do you think as far as her intention of making the podium? What are your thoughts on that?
That's what we are working for the past 5 years. That's my response. There is nothing else I can say. Working with Priscilla and seeing her desire to be successful in life, the competitor that she is, and not on the mat, in life in general. You know her, Gagné, and I thought that I know her, but I didn't know her until the COVID, because really the strength of her character showed on me after a real challenge was on the horizon. She fights for the rights of people who require special attention from the rest of the society, and she doesn't stop in fighting for that. And she is right to do that. We are living in a country that is very progressive, and we are considering Canada as one of the best countries in the world, and definitely Canada is one of the leaders on many fronts. But it doesn't mean that there is not enough work to do in order to make it even better. And if you do not find yourself on the line, as Priscilla and people with significant special needs are finding themselves, in particular in a crisis situation, then we don't see it. She can see it on a daily basis, and she fights for to be treated with respect, to be treated equally as everybody else is, and that's her approach to life. The fighter in her, it's the same on the mat. And seeing her efforts is just heartwarming exercise for me, and it would be heartbreaking exercise if all of this effort went for nothing. But at the same time, if dreams do not materialize, it doesn't change the person she is, and her journey in life is going to continue, and she's going to continue fight for what is right on the mat and off the mat. So that's pretty much all I need to say about this person.
That's outstanding, Andrzej. I have one last question to ask both of you, and it's on the topic of best advice for any judo competitor looking to compete at the national, international level. We'll start with you, Priscilla. What's the best advice you give?
The best advice I can give to somebody who's looking to compete internationally?
Yes.
I would say know who you are.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. For someone who has the same aspirations as you for competing at the Paralympics.
I would say to know who you are, trust your coach, and be teachable, and yet at the same time stand your ground when you need to. but pick your battles. It's a lot of opposing comments, but essentially I would say, you know, follow your heart. Remember why you're doing it, because you can get lost in the political agendas and in the drama. And so remember, always remember why you're doing it and who you're doing it for, and be teachable.
That's awesome. Those are awesome words. I almost feel like you could write a book on that, you know, in terms of motivation and drive and leadership, because that's exactly what I'm sensing when I hear that, in terms of personal development, professional development, and that will to persevere. Now, Andrzej, same question for you, Coach. What's the best advice you would give for anyone looking to compete?
Honestly, I couldn't say it better than what Priscilla said. But I would add one more thing. If you find that you do not love what you do, then you are struggling. And then your journey is, you should look for something else in life. And I'm saying that deliberately, because we are suffering in Canada, in many other societies, the same dilemma of young children being promoted as future champions, you know, mostly by their parents, but not only. And we hear that over and over again as coaches. Oh, my child loves it so much, etc., etc. And that's true. Children love what they do most of the time. It's very easy to love what you do when you are 15, 16, 17, or younger. You have to love judo when you are 20, 21, 22. Then you have a chance to compete at the international stage when you are actually a mature individual. Too often we love judo when we are younger, and then we start working harder and harder and dislike it, but still going for it, because that's what the expectations are. If expectations are greater, the outside expectations are greater than your inner desire to be great, then it's time to find something else in life.
Oh, that's well said. I'm going to remember that.
Big time. This has been a really awesome interview. I'd like to thank you both, and I wish you all the best in Tokyo. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll be cheering for you.
Thank you. And thanks, Garmini, for promoting Parajudo.
For sure. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Have a good one. All the best.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.
Get ready for training, please.
Bye.